is one of my all-time favorite singers among male SEIYUU, and the news is out. It was announced a week or two ago. So, what are we going to do? Of course, you bet. We are going to talk about Makoto Furukawa's mini album, Catch Me If You Can. And I'm sorry, but this is almost a reference to Moriarty The Patriot, so I'm really excited. So, let's dive into this episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Welcome to SEIYUU Lounge. I'm your host Vanessa, and today we are going to talk about Makoto Furukawa's mini album Catch Me If You Can. The mini album is not yet out at the time that I'm talking or recording this episode, so if you are catching these after the mini album is out, you are going to get some impressions without much information out, so this is going to be a weird episode for you to find afterwards. But if you are listening to these as it drops, we just had that announced a couple of weeks ago after Makoto Furukawa's live show. So he announced the release of his mini album Catch Me If You Can, and I'm sorry, but I'm a massive fan of Makoto Furukawa, and I'm also a massive fan of Moriarty The Patriot, in which Furukawa played Sherlock Holmes, and Catch Me If You Can is almost what Moriarty says to Sherlock. So, I'm making parallels, but I know that this has nothing to do with that, but still, I'm making parallels, so let me make those parallels, because this episode is going to be really unhinged, sorry. He's one of my all-time favorite singers among male SEIYUU, and if Makoto Furukawa basically breathes, I'm fainting left and right. Not that it happens or has happened before, but I feel myself getting really excited, so... is actually going to release the mini album in June, so we have the very first big release for the summer. Finally, we have something really substantial dropping in the summers. Usually we start getting those announcements around this time of the year. In February and March, we start getting those announcements for the summer releases, and it is good to see that Makoto Furukawa was actually the first one to come forward, saying, yeah, I'm going to release a CD in June, so prepare yourselves because it is called Catch Me If You Can. And the title is really... I love this title because the words sound really good when you pronounce those. So Catch Me If You Can is really cheeky. I like it. It is overdone because there are multiple Catch Me If You Can CDs and songs out there, so... But still, Catch Me If You Can. I feel that the concept... If it is a conceptual CD, which there is no confirmation whatsoever, I feel... At least this has something interesting going on. First thing I saw, and I was crazy about this one, was the promotional photo. It is black and white, and Makoto Furukawa is actually wearing a leather jacket. I've said countless times before, I love his rocker vibe. He is actually a jazz rock artist in some capacity because he has been doing the two genres basically in tandem. More jazz than rock, but he has slowly shifted to rock, and this is something that I like as a transition as an artist. He still has that jazzy vibe about him. I feel that whenever I look at Makoto Furukawa, the only thing I can think about is that he really fits the rock vibe, but also he fits so well the jazz genre. Whenever he puts on a suit and he looks at the camera with that cheeky smirk of his, he is so jazz-coded for me. And of course, whenever he is with those Doc Martens and the skinny black jeans and the leather jacket, he's that rocker that I wanted to see on stage and that I got slightly frustrated that Atlantis didn't allow him to become a rock artist. But now we are starting to see some shades of that. Makoto Furukawa is actually looking really nice for the promotional photos, which is cool. We already have the announcement. The CD is Catch Me If You Can. It is a mini album, so we are expecting at least 5 songs, new songs. Usually a mini album doesn't bring previously released songs, so this is going to be good because we are not getting a Margaret no Chimoku in here or anything in between from the previous release. We are actually going to get new songs. At least that's what I expect, because a mini album usually is all about being either conceptual or bringing new songs to the table. He's actually going to perform an ending song for an anime series, and the song is called Hightail It. So I feel that the song is going to be rock. But usually the ending themes for anime tend to be slower paced, calmer. I feel that maybe it's going to be a sort of an acoustic ballad, maybe, or an acoustic song in some capacity to be quieter, because usually ending themes for anime series are quieter. So whenever you listen or hear your favorite seiyuu artist saying, oh, I'm going to perform the ending theme for a series, usually the ending themes are down-tempo, and because they need to accommodate the ending credits and they need to sort of summarize what happened, but not so intensely because you already have that tension in the opening theme. So that's what I'm expecting. Also, we had the announcement, or at least we have the covers unveiled, and I'm really feeling the covers. Because why am I feeling the covers? Did you notice what I said before? When he's wearing a suit, he looks really handsome. And when he's wearing that leather jacket, he looks really, really cool. And he has the 2 looks for the 3 covers. We have the CD cover, the regular one, which is actually a pretty simple cover. We have the CD plus Blu-ray cover, which is the limited edition cover, which is probably the one that I will be getting, I think. It comes with the Blu-ray, with the music video and making of. I'm reading as I'm actually recording this episode, and I'm reading from the Japanese webpage, so please clap me, because right now my Japanese is actually pretty good to the point that I don't need to translate anything. But then we have another edition, a really special edition, which has a CD plus a downloadable card. And the downloadable card has information. It has a digital photo, which I don't think it is worth the money, but the cover, I like it. So we have the confirmation, 5 songs. It doesn't say 5 new songs, but it says 5 songs. I like that there is a duality. 2 artist photos were released, so we may have a concept in here, my friends. This is, of course, the first time in 4 years that Makoto Furukawa releases an album in any capacity. We are talking about From Fairy Tail, the full-length album, and now we are releasing a mini album. So we have that. We are going to get a music video and a making of, which I love because I love the making of from Mosaic to Fairy Tail. And I love how he goes in depth about the music video and the concept and the lyrics that he wrote. So I'm expecting kind of that as well from this release. Also, the fact that we have double artist photos and covers that show that duality, and it says, catch me if you can. Do we have a Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty kind of vibe, or a Jekyll and Hyde type of vibe? Because I would be up for it. I would love for that to happen. Please, Furukawa, please. I need someone besides Soma Saito to bring concepts that are worth diving into. Yeah. I'm reading the page, but the information doesn't disclose much about the album beyond that, so it is really early on. I will actually share something with you because I worked in some capacity in the music industry for a bit, although amateurishly, so take this with a grain of salt because things may have changed, and also I only worked in the music industry in Europe, not necessarily in Japan. But usually when you are announcing the artist photos, and usually when you have a title, you already have the songs recorded. They may either be all recorded or some recorded, but the songs are mostly recorded. The concept is already nailed down because you won't be sharing photos and the title if you don't have a concept. Because usually if you share a title and you don't share the photos, you only have the concept itself, but you don't have the idea put into motion. So when we share the cover art, or in this case, he shared the cover art and the artist photos, he already knows really well what he wants and what he is going to do. It's pretty safe to say that the album is pretty much nailed down by now, and that it may be in the last stages of recording it, and it may be soon go to mixing and mastering. I feel that this may be an album that is close to be wrapped up right now. Still, Makoto Furukawa is a really busy voice actor, so you need to understand that maybe much of the things are done, but not all, because he needs to save some time to actually stop and do his work as a singer, solo artist. If they say just, I'm going to release an album, like Shoichiba said, I'm going to release a full-length album, and there is no release date, there is no title, there is no covers, there is no information whatsoever, it's because there was the approval for that album done, or basically conceded by the label. But he has yet to start working on the album. There are no lyrics, there are no songs, there is nothing, basically. and not even the composers and the lyricists are nailed down at the moment, which is a big reason why nothing was announced. But in this case, Makoto Furukawa came forward and said, yeah, we have already the title, we have the covers, we have the idea that we are going to have 5 new songs in there, there is going to be a music video, so he already has nailed down everything about this. It feels like that he has been working on this since the release of the previous single. Which is good because I was telling at the time, and when I wrote the review, I was saying that I really wanted him to build up from there because the ideas were good, the execution was not perfect. In comparison with previous releases, the execution was not perfect. But I'm actually expecting something really, really good from this mini album. Of course, only time will tell if he actually releases something amazing and really worth my time and my money, because I'm going to purchase that CD blind, without even any previews whatsoever. I'm going to get that CD because he's one of my favorite singers among male seiyuu, so I'm going to support if I have the money, and in this case I do, and I'm going to support him regardless. If the CD actually doesn't correspond to my expectations, that's on me because I purchased it without even having any type of information about it beyond the covers and the artist photos and the title. But yeah, I'm quite excited about this CD, and I feel that the work that Makoto Furukawa has done in the past has been amazing, and I feel that he deserves more credit for what he does and what he has done. And he usually doesn't get it. I feel that there is some bias there. I've heard a couple of people saying that they really dislike how much vibrato he has in his voice, and as a result, they don't even listen to him singing. That's personal preference, of course. But it is really difficult to actually move away from that when the vibrato is a massive part of what Makoto Furukawa can do on the vocal end, and most of the impressive things that he does with his vibrato. Of course, he has been improving a whole lot, and he has been bringing a couple of other things into the mix. I remember in 2020 when he did an interview with Soma Saito, which is crazy how they actually did an interview together. I don't think it was for Moriarty The Patriot, it was for something else, I feel. And they were talking about they were releasing albums in the same day. Saito released In Bloom and Makoto Furukawa released From Fairy Tail. They actually shared photos online of them exchanging CDs, which is really, really sweet of them. But once again, they are friends, so it was to be expected. But at that time, Soma Saito was saying, well, the thing I would love to have would be Makoto Furukawa's sexy, deep voice and that vibrato, because the vibrato is really, really sexy. Makoto Furukawa actually got really bashful about it, and he was blushing a little bit, saying that actually he would love to tone down that, and he would love to have the crystal clear and beautiful high notes that Soma Saito has. First of all, they were raving about each other, which I love. They are my 2 favorite singers among male seiyuu, so there's that as well. But the thing and the reason that I brought this conversation here, basically, is that Makoto Furukawa, as of late, has been practicing a whole lot to bring high notes into these performances. And don't get me wrong, he actually has impressed a whole lot, and I was not expecting that from the start. So as soon as he started to play around with his vocal range and practicing a whole lot to bring those high notes, which his vocal range usually wouldn't have because he's a baritone, a lower baritone, but he actually got those high notes nailed down pretty well, and actually brought even falsetto and a little bit of head voice to a couple of songs recently. This is impressive, and of course, he is actually practicing that, but he also has a ton of 2D music projects he's a part of, and some of those require him to actually bring those things to the table. But it is really impressive to see how much he is improving towards having that thing that he wanted in his skill set, which would be the high notes, the crystal clear high notes. Of course, his high notes are not crystal clear, but the emotion that he brings and the fact that he does the high notes, but also there's a little bit of a vibrato going on in there, and the raspiness that makes you really emotional actually grab your attention much more than if he had just clean high notes, which I feel suit better a tenor than a baritone to begin with. He's actually doing something really similar to Takuya Sato. They also have the same vocal range, they are baritones, and can do really low baritone as well, going into bass if they want to. they are both improving when it comes to the singing, and their singing is not one-dimensional anymore. So they are not just the sexy voice with a really powerful vibrato or a really sexy undertone. They are doing more. They are trying to bring those high notes, to be able to deliver a really powerful falsetto and even have a go at high notes in head voice, which is really tricky. You need to have perfect control of your airflow when you are singing, and knowing exactly how much air you need to draw out and how much you need to bring in. It is a matter of control, and if they nail this control, they get really, really awesome when it comes to singing. Really technical stuff when it comes to high notes. So belting will be pretty easy for them if they actually achieve that. Makoto Furukawa has been doing an amazing job in that regard, and I feel that he has the potential to impress a lot. I wasn't the biggest fan of the previous single, but he said that it was a turn of a leaf in his story as a solo artist. He celebrated his 5th anniversary as a solo artist, so he wanted to change things around. I am a bit worried if the jazz sound is going to go away forever, and if he is going to bring that generic pop sound that we got in the previous single. I hope not. But let's see how the album actually, or the mini album actually sounds like. I'm quite excited about it, so let's see what Makoto Furukawa brings, and I'm quite excited about this one. I've been graining since the news is out, and I am recording this episode and I still haven't written the news on the website, so shame on me. But I'm really, really excited about this, and let's see how he impresses. So let's dive into the outro. So these were my thoughts about Makoto Furukawa's Catch Me If You Can. This is a really exciting time for me, and I believe for other Makoto Furukawa fans, because he's back, he brings new music, and it's not just 2 songs or a conceptual single separated in 3 different editions. It is a full-fledged EP or mini album, and it is going to have 5 songs. I'm excited about it, because if it goes conceptual here for a Jekyll and Hyde or a Moriarty and Holmes type of concept, with that duality that we see in the photos, this could be something really amazing. Of course, this can be also to throw us off, and maybe this is a fairly basic or simple mini album. I hope not, but this can throw us off. I'm being quite excited about this one and positive about this one, because I feel that Makoto Furukawa is going to bring his storytelling to the best, to the maximum with this mini album. And if he is leading with the lyrics, he is going to make the song sound amazing. I would love to have Kuwabara back. Kuwabara has been his producer for most of his CDs, and if Kuwabara was actually playing something, that would be awesome. And I'm going to get the limited edition because I want that music video and that making of, because his making of sections aren't like the ones from, for example, Suma Saito, which he barely talks to the camera. In this case, for Makoto Furukawa, he talks a lot. He's really on top of the camera, talking a lot about his music and talking a lot about what he wrote and what was behind the concepts in his songs. And I love to dive into that part. It feels so good to see someone that thought about a specific concept, accomplished that concept with the lyrics, and now is seeing that coming into fruition with a music video that actually depicts what they had into their mind. And Makoto Furukawa actually gets really excited about that. I love him as a storyteller. I've said this before, when it comes to storytellers among male seiyuu, my 2 favorite ones are Suma Saito and Makoto Furukawa by far. They are basically the only ones that are writing, or at least the lyrics to everything they do. We also have Kenichi Suzumura and Shotaro Morikubo, but they are not massive storytellers. They are good at what they do individually, but they are not massive storytellers. When it comes to really rich, deep storytellers with intricate concepts, Suma Saito and Makoto Furukawa are the 2 ones that really tickle my fancy, really. And in this case, I'm really excited about Makoto Furukawa. I hope this is going to be a good release, but if we actually look at this with a really clear mind, if Makoto Furukawa is actually releasing a mini album in June, he will hardly release a full-length album by the end of the year. which was my expectation for this year, so I feel I'm going to fail that one really fantastically. But yeah, these were my impressions about Makoto Furukawa's Catch Me If You Can mini album dropping in June 18th. And it's going to bring 5 new songs to the table, or 5 songs to the table, and is going to perform an ending theme for an anime series which will be featured in this CD as well. So we may have a double concept, or we may have a duality concept going on in here, 2 different sides of the same artist, the jazz artist and the rock artist. So we may have half of the CD jazz music and half of the CD rock music, or we may have a fusion of both and have jazz rock throughout the album, which would be interesting as well. And I love jazz rock, so I would be really down for that. So I'm quite excited about this one. Of course, this was me just rambling about Makoto Furukawa's CD. I would love to know what you thought about this announcement, if you are excited about Catch Me If You Can, if you actually are going to purchase the CD or are going to wait for it to drop on streaming platforms and actually have a listen at it. And of course, let me know in the comments on YouTube, and remember, leave your comments as complex or as simple as they may be, and you can be featured on upcoming episodes of SEIYUU Lounge. If you enjoyed this episode and don't want to miss the THTFHQ's weekly male SEIYUU and music-related content, hit the subscribe button. And if you are listening to this episode on a podcast listening platform, please consider following the podcast and leaving a review. Leaving a review is really simple and helps other people find this podcast and fall in love with male SEIYUU artists and 2D groups. I'll return next week with another episode of SEIYUU Lounge. Thank you for listening, and see you guys around.